Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that has all of Don Ho's music on HD CD.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Surround sound, baby. Tiny bubbles everywhere.
Just all the bubbles, all the tiniest ones, on all the surfaces.
All the bubbles all the time. That's what I like. Bubbliest apartment you'll find in Los Angeles. Welcome back. Hi, Britt. How are you?
I've been better, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know if people are actually watching the video of this podcast or if they're just listening, but people who are watching the video will probably take notice of the fact that I am wearing a hoodie. I haven't taken a shower. My hair is up, no makeup, lip balm. Just I wanted to mimic the level of effort that was put into this episode, into my appearance. So no effort at all. I literally woke up like this, watched this terrible episode, which I kind of felt like that's how much time they spent making this and writing it.
I'll agree with you that this episode has a lot of holes in it.
Holes? This episode was like a black hole. It was like it sucked in energy from my block. Like I thought that the energy that came into this episode I feel like I went crazy. Like I feel like I was incepted in some way when I was watching this.
I'm shocked to see that this is the episode that looks like it broke you.
We're obviously the trip to Paris broke me into my core of my being.
I feel like I'm still recovering from that.
I am. And to be honest, I was sort of like, God, when did we do that? And I was like, oh, that was last summer, which is coming up. I was like, we were going to record that like at the beginning of last summer, and it's February now, so it's just like time has flown. There you go.
Time is flying.
Anyway, so this episode was really bad.
I thought it was easy. It went down easy in terms of doing notes for it. In terms of, I guess maybe there were not too many guest people, and there was not too many references that I needed to delve into, as much as there was just so many logic holes that I kept trying to climb myself out of. So it went down fairly easy. It wasn't offensive. That's the good things I have to say about it. I feel like I laughed 2 times maybe. Also, Mrs. Garrett lost her fucking mind in this episode.
Here's why you laughed. Only because of her insane delivery.
Her deliveries were crazy.
Which, honest to God, I feel like Azad Khalada, who directed this episode, was not in charge. She was doing this on her own. And she was like, listen, Azad, listen. If this is going to be the episode purportedly about not stressing me out because of my high blood pressure, I get to make the choices. I get to make all the choices. So fuck you, sit back and relax. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back into my trailer and sleep. So you guys do this however you want to do it.
But you're going to have some scenes in the cafeteria, right?
Yeah. Just make sure that there's a lot of cafeteria.
Do what you want, do it in the cafeteria.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that this episode went down easily for you, aside from the fact that you didn't really have to look anyone up, aside from that one dude at the end who shows up to give the car keys back. But it's so funny that you said it went down easily. I literally wrote down in my notes, God, this was a chore. The other thing is, for an episode that was like pieced together like some sort of cheap quilt made out of thousands of different pieces. A lot of weird shit happens but of course off screen. And there was a moment about 18 minutes into this where I was like, how are they going to resolve all of this? And I had a panic attack because I thought this was a two-parter. I thought, oh no, oh my God, there's more of this. There's more. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I love that this episode was so poorly constructed that 18 minutes into it, you believed that there was going to be a whole other part because so little had occurred. Yeah. Let's get into it. It's called Under Pressure. And
Season 4, episode 14.
Season 4, episode 14. We're getting through it. And the joy of season 4 is that we've got 2 more two-parters. So they are coming up. I will warn you in advance.
See, that's the thing. Because you with the last time we recorded, you were like, yeah, we got some two-parters coming up. We got some two-parters. We got a couple two-parters. And that, like, lodged faintly in my mind. And then as I was watching this, I was like, oh no, is this one of them? Is this a two-parter? And I was like, no. I need to watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City today. Please don't let it be a two-parter. I can't do this for 9 hours.
They're coming. I will warn you. And I really do like 2 of them quite a bit. But one of them I don't. And the one I don't is coming up first. And it's like one that I skip anytime I see that it's on TV. And like, I'll watch almost any if they're just on. Not since we've been doing the podcast though, because I've been trying to only watch them in order. But normally this has been historically an episode that we're talking about that I would try to skip. This one, however, I have seen many times. I know this one very, very well, and it was weird watching it with an analytical eye because usually I just let it kind of wash over me.
Right.
But not today. Not today. So it's Under Pressure is written by a Facts of Life one and doneer.
Really? What? This person wasn't allowed to write more for this television show?
No.
This person who seemingly made shit up at random for these characters. Since when does Blair know how to drive? When did that happen?
It just happened. It's fine.
No. That would have been, you know what? Teaching Blair to drive. Blair goes to driver's ed. That would have been an episode.
Here's
that
the
could have
thing.
been a whole episode.
They do it with Tootie. I believe it's actually called Tootie Drives is the name of the episode, I believe. And it is.
Oh wow! How memorable.
And she has to learn how to drive and take her test and stuff. It's a really funny episode, actually.
I'm sure.
She does it in a hearse.
While wearing roller skates, hopefully.
Afraid not. But,
wheels on wheels. Is there a dead person in the back? Does hilarity ensue?
There is somebody in the back, and hilarity does ensue.
I bet. Does she think it's a dead person?
I would say the instructor thinks it might be a dead.
Oh, okay.
But it's Natalie. Anyway, so Sandra K. Siegel is the author of today's episode. She got her start on the 1978 sitcom, which we've discussed previously, Who's Watching the Kids, which starred Scott Baio and James Belushi. It's set in Vegas, and it also starred Christy, the prostitute from the Runaway episode.
Mm-hmm.
It was her show. She also ended up writing on the Shirley Jones show Shirley, The Love Boat, Fantasy Island. She was the story editor of The Brady Brides. Did you ever watch The Brady Brides?
No, I hated The Brady Bunch. Also,
Brady Brides is not The Brady Bunch, my friend.
Is it a spin-off of The Brady Bunch?
Yes.
Then I won't like it.
Did you sorry to tangent myself off of a tangent, but there was a drama from I think 91 maybe called The Bradys, and it was like an hour-long sophisticated drama where I think Bobby Brady was paralyzed. It was like I think Greg had a drug problem. One of them was engaged to Martha Quinn from MTV. Not playing Martha Quinn. She was playing somebody else, but Martha Quinn was on that show. It was such a weird thing to see these characters all be in like a joke-free, sophisticated environment where there's drama. Even Alice was there. It was crazy.
So what you're saying is that basically someone was like, you know what, we need to give this this heartwarming show about a blended family and their fun antics, and maybe some cheeky sex talk, about, and it's over in 25 minutes, of just fun stuff. And it's like, what we need to do? We need to do a fucking Christopher Nolan gritty reboot of the Brady Bunch, where, to be perfectly honest, and you want to know what inspired that? The guy who played Mr. Brady died of AIDS. I'm sure that's exactly what inspired that.
No, he was alive on the show.
Oh, did he have AIDS on the show?
Not as a character.
As a human, yes. I mean, R.I.P. to that guy. That was very sad when he died. That was tragic, But again, no one is asking for a gritty reboot of, 30 Rock.
I truly loved it.
That's called Studio 60.
Oh, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I still quote Studio 60 all the time. It's really, that's a bad show. Anyway, all right, moving on. Sandra K. Siegel did 8 is Enough. She did Falcon Crest, Finder of Lost Loves, which is like it's like two women are Cupid, but they're not, but they're gonna find your lost love. Safe at Home, The Berringers, and Hotel in 1987. So her career lasted like 9 solid years of doing a million shows, and then she didn't work for 6 years, and she came back in '94 with the half-hour TV version of Valley of the Dolls. Have you heard of this?
That does ring a bell, actually, because I actually really like Valley of the Dolls. So
yes.
I think that it might have I was like, oh, maybe that might be good. But it was bad, wasn't it?
I don't know. I heard about it 5 minutes before we did this podcast, but it starred Sally Kirkland.
Yeah.
And it lasted 65 episodes. That was her last credit, and it seems that she either passed away on May 28th, 2019, or March 7th, 2017, because there are 2 Sandra K. Siegels out there.
Okay.
But none living that I could find.
I see. So do you think that she died under mysterious circumstances in 2017, and then to evade, capture, and then actually died later?
Oh, I definitely think that it's one woman. She faked her death because she was, in her 70s and probably had racked up quite a lot of crime.
Gambling debts. Yeah, exactly.
And then 2 years later, life on the lam caught up to her, and she just couldn't take it anymore.
To be perfectly frank, that makes the most sense to me.
We're not even 15 minutes into this episode, and we've mocked 2 people dying. Welcome to the facts of facts.
That's the thing. I mean, I'll be here all night. I'm sure I got another one in me.
I'm sure too. And we do have another dead person to discuss at some point. Actually, speaking of which, we should give a little shout out to Cloris Leachman as well. Now we record these in advance, so this will probably have happened about a month ago. But we at the Facts of Facts, particularly me, huge Cloris Leachman fan since I was a kid. I loved Mary Tyler Moore. I loved Phyllis. Phyllis is like one of my favorite weird spinoffs. I don't know if you've ever watched Phyllis.
I've seen Phyllis.
It is bonkers. And I mean, she was great all the way. I mean, Raising Hope, she was great on. She's always been great. She really does elevate the facts of life in seasons 7 through 9. Or really seasons 8 and 9, which you will experience, and I'm excited for you.
She's a comedic genius. So she's just, it doesn't matter. She could be reading, Mein Kampf, and you would laugh.
Yes. All right. So let's get into today's episode.
Yeah.
We were talking about dead people, and you were so happy. And then I said, let's talk about today's episode, and your face just dropped. So we open in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and all the girls are hard at work. Mrs. Garrett has just returned from getting her annual physical.
Yep.
Apparently, she's in good enough shape to renew her magazine subscriptions for another year, so that's 12 more months of Playgirl and Redhead Digest.
I thought, what an odd way of phrasing that. Like, so sort of vague yet specific. You know what I mean? Like, it
Bizarre.
could have been, like, it would have been cuter and funnier had they made the joke that you just made, being like, I guess I don't need to cancel my home and garden, magazine subscription, whatever. Whereas this one's like, I guess I can renew my magazines. What? Also, the craziest thing is that Mrs. Garrett comes in, and then Tootie immediately asks an extremely invasive medical question. Like, immediately. Like, as though that's a normal thing to say to anyone over the age of 8. How was your trip to the gyno? Was that good? Was it cool? Did you talk about going through the change? It's like, you should know this. Like,
Well, I agree. And I honestly, like, when you asked, because we do text prior to this sometimes, and you were like, I don't even know what this episode was about. I actually think that this episode was about this. Other people's medical stuff is not your business.
That's the fact of life.
And if you have some kind of medical issue, don't tell young
Anyone?
girls. If you tell your doctor, tell your husband, but don't tell young girls and freak them out. But that's exactly what Mrs. Garrett does. She freaks them out, tells them she's got high blood pressure, and the girls do seem very concerned, even though Mrs. Garrett explains it's a family inheritance, along with her ultra dark inverted nipples. Everybody in her family has them.
Yeah, no, but so yeah, she's like, oh no, it's fine. I've just got a slightly elevated blood pressure. And like, Tootie kind of expresses concern. Joe's like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. And Blair says something along the lines of like, how can that be? You eat so well and you exercise a lot. And it's just like, she's like, whatever, it's fine. It's I have high blood pressure. It runs in my family. Meanwhile, creep Natalie is standing behind her like she's the clown from It. Like, she's standing there, like, looking at her as though she just said, I have Ebola and I just vomited into each of your mouths. So now you have Ebola. Like, Natalie looks at her, so she's like, I can't believe this. And looks as though she's going to kill Mrs. Garrett like a mercy killing.
Yes, Natalie is deeply concerned.
Yeah.
And honestly, everything that follows is now Natalie's fault.
It is. Everything that follows is Natalie's fault because everything is insane in this.
Yes. Natalie freaks out the girls as well. But Mrs. Garrett says no, she'll live just as long as she doesn't get hit by a truck. So Tootie asks, oh, well, how can we help? She's like, don't take up truck driving. And she gives a little wink like she's having a mini stroke. I would take her right back to the hospital. Honestly, her behavior this episode, like, there's like the doctor missed something.
Yes.
Either Charlotte Ray or Edna Garrett, something is wrong with one of them this week.
Or like the doctor gave her like a wrong dose, like it was like take 6 of these, and Miss Garrett heard like take 60 of these. It's like she is crazy in this. But also, yeah, but I wrote down, yeah, so Tootie's like, so is there anything we can do to help? Which again, like, someone's high blood pressure? No. But again, kind of like a don't stress me out, don't cause my blood pressure to skyrocket. But she's like, don't take up truck driving. And I wrote down, we've reached a new low of laziness. Don't take up truck driving?
Yeah.
It's a long way to go. And the audience treats that like it's a joke.
They have to. They don't have very many options. But speaking of aggravation, Mrs. Garrett wonders if Mr. Parker has been looking for her, because apparently it's about time for him to force her to throw his wife's birthday party, because that's a totally normal thing for the school dietitian to do.
I literally wrote down, why is this her responsibility? Thankfully, though, Blair completed my thought, says, why are you doing that for him?
Yeah, that's not part of your job.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Garrett's like, since when does that matter? Now get back to cleaning my kitchen, which is not your job.
My baby slaves.
So weird. Like, what was part of Mrs. Garrett's job to find free slave labor? Was that like part of it?
Well, apparently also she's the one person who puts on birthday parties at this school.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's got all that free time because a job that was meant for one person is now being done by 4 girls.
Yeah.
Anyway, with Mrs. Garrett gone, Natalie decides to freak out the other girls by saying that just because she looks fine and says she's fine, she's gonna die.
So I wrote down, so basically Natalie starts concern trolling, being like, you guys, this is really serious. Like, she might look okay. She's acting okay right now, but in 10 minutes, you're going to see crazy Mrs. Garrett. But she's like, looks can be deceiving. High blood pressure is known as the silent killer.
Hypertension.
Yes. It's known as the silent killer.
You know it is?
High blood pressure.
Yeah, I Googled it, and just as of like 2020, there was an article that was like, why do we call high blood pressure the silent killer? And I was like, oh, we really do.
Yeah, we do.
Natalie, she got one right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, so again, when she says that, she is acting like a not silent killer. She delivers that line with this sort of glum, fearful glee, where it seems like she's hoping Mrs. Garrett might die. Like, she is looking out. She's like, Mrs. Garrett probably is going to die, guys. Okay. So we she doesn't, R.I.P. Edna at this point. So you should probably go upstairs and say goodbye to her because she's dead already.
Yeah.
Who's ready to move a corpse? Tootie, do you have that hearse that you learned to drive in?
Well, Natalie knows all about hypertension because she's been stressing out her family for years.
That's true.
And she says there are no symptoms for hypertension.
Mm-hmm.
So here are the 10 symptoms for hypertension.
Okay.
Headaches, shortness of breath, chest pains, exhaustion, nausea, poor vision, ringing in the ear, confusion, nosebleeds, and kidney damage. I mean, Mrs. Garrett was definitely confused this episode.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only one.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing is that so she learned all of this from, she learned all about the silent killer because her father. She quotes her father because her father is a doctor and he has a lot of patients with hypertension.
He doesn't have a lot of patience with Natalie or Natalie's mom because he cheats on her.
Exactly. But I was going to say, again, Dr. Green should not be discussing his patient's ailments with his daughter. But it's not as though Dr. Green is some fucking model of discretion.
That is correct. No, he certainly is not. But, he could be doing it anonymously, to be fair, of Dr. Green. Oh, I had this client today with terrible hypertension. You've got to be careful with hypertension. It's the silent killer, everybody. that would be a fair way for him to do it. Anyway, Joe points out with disgust. Oh, wait, hang on. There's more. So Natalie is fully convinced Tootie, who Blair thinks is a real barrel of laughs, as well as Natalie.
Yeah.
Tootie had previously thought of Mrs. Garrett as a rock, but now sees her as a pile of sand that could be blown away by the slightest breeze, which is not really how sand works.
No, but also it was such a bizarre, Tootie also seemingly has now resigned herself to the fact that Mrs. Garrett is dead already.
Yes.
And it's like, I never got to say goodbye to my favorite former rock, now pile of sand.
My favorite school dietitian I ever had.
She's actually sand, which is a thing that normal people say.
Joe points out with disgust that Mrs. Garrett eats alpha sprouts, so she's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then Natalie brings up all the stress in her life, particularly the upcoming birthday party for Mrs. Parker. And Joe says they can help her by not being their typical assholic selves.
Yeah.
Blair's like, whatever
Blair
do you
says,
mean?
Blair's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're awesome. I love us. Don't you love us? We're amazing. We're so not stressful at all. We're a joy to be around. Meanwhile, cut to.
Well, to be in Blair's defense, if Mrs. Garrett didn't have the four of them, wouldn't she be doing an enormous amount more work?
Yeah.
So I feel like Mrs. Garrett's got to take the good with the bad. It's kind of the point of the song.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Except the point of the song for me is always I take the bad with this show.
You just don't get it yet. So anyway,
yeah, Joe's like, yeah, but she's like, maybe we don't stress her out as much as we usually do. And Blair's like, what are you talking about? We're a joy to be around, and then Tootie again, seemingly rejoicing in the possible death of her favorite person at Eastland. It's like all doom and gloom. She's like, yeah, before she's just another statistic. And then they hold on the girls for like 5 seconds.
A really long time.
As they just sort of contemplate the death of their favorite person at Eastland.
We're supposed to be taking this very seriously. She's going to die.
Yeah.
We fade into Mrs. Garrett's room, and Mrs. Garrett is catching up on her correspondence or something. I don't know what she's doing.
I wrote down correspondence as well. She's paying her bills. Sure. But yeah, so the girls come barging in. They're like all four of them. They come like bang, bang, bang. She's like, come in.
It's so invasive. Like it makes me uncomfortable how intense they were.
Yeah, and like the fact that the relationship already between this educator at this school and these little girls is already way too porous. She shouldn't be telling them about her medical issues, nor should they be asking. Anyway, So they come in basically acting like Mrs. Garrett needs to have like a rest and a lie down. She needs to put like a damp cloth over her face. She's probably dead already. We've already made the coffin for you, so you should probably just get in.
And they each have a prop.
Yeah, so Tootie comes in with a tray with tea and like a cookie or something.
I thought it was a cupcake.
It could have been a cupcake. And she's like, she's like, what's all this? And she goes, Tootie says, we come in, we're bringing in room service compliments of the Eastland Hilton. And I was like, I wonder if there is a Hilton in Eastland, Gesundheit.
You mean Peekskill?
In Peekskill. There isn't. However, the closest one is a Hilton, is a Hampton Inn, which is owned by Hilton, which is in Harriman, which is close to Peekskill. And it is $101 a night. And can I read a couple reviews?
Please.
Of this place? So 3 months ago on 3 months ago on hotels.com, someone rated it 4 out of 10 stars, saying the shower was old and had mold smell to it. Need to replace ASAP. The sofa bed, spring mattress was really worn out. The room itself needs to be modernized. That's just my opinion. Thank you for understanding. On hotels.com, as though like people are going to be like, I don't buy this. I don't know. Or,
I don't think this was his opinion.
No. Anyway, so then the other one is 4 out of 5 stars. Rated it fair. Too quiet and creepy, but the pool is amazing. And I didn't write this down, unfortunately, but I wish I did. But the person who runs the this Hampton Inn, responded to that review, saying, "I'm so glad you really enjoyed our pool, but due to COVID, we've had to shut down parts of certain floors and parts of the hotel, so that's why it might seem creepy and quiet. Thank you."
There's a lot of thank yous in hotels.com. Yeah. So, Mrs. Garrett is like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, Blair puts
And
down a flower, and
well,
she's
yeah.
like,
Well,
and she puts down a flower, and Mrs. Garrett's immediately suspicious. She's like, "What's this?" You know, she's like, "For what?"
also, Tootie is shouting everything in this scene.
Yeah.
Her voice is so piercing that I'm actually genuinely worried about my own blood pressure.
Anyway,
Uh,
she's like, why? What's the deal? Why are you being so nice to me? Usually, you guys are a nightmare. Have you done something bad that you're trying to conceal?
Yeah, they just want to bring her a touch of paradise.
Yeah.
Joe's even got an incredibly glossy poster of Hawaii that they just happen to have had lying around.
Yep.
As,
Apparently.
as well as a collection of Don Ho's greatest hits on cassette,
Yes.
fully loaded into a Walkman.
Yep. Anyway, so do you want to
Mrs.
talk
Garrett
about
said she
Don
doesn't
Ho?
have time for this.
Yeah,
How do you
she's like,
not have time for a poster on the wall? It's just going to be there. How do you not have time for the soothing sounds of Don Ho to be bubbling around while you're doing your bills? Doing your bills, that's fine. None of this stuff stops you from doing your bills. Just say, thank you, nice children. And I really regret that I ever said anything about my health. I will be fine. It's nothing.
yeah, exactly. It's
But
yeah.
that's not what she does.
Or also, you know what, Mrs. Garrett? Install a lock. Don't let him in. Don't let him in. Don't
Yes.
let the little girls in.
So the little girls are now out in the hallway congratulating themselves for a job well done when Mrs. Garrett lets out a blood-curdling scream.
Yes.
What? Like, okay, you just freaked out these kids about your
Health issues.
your blood pressure, and now they walk and you are aware, heightenedly aware, that they are so concerned that they brought 4 props for you
Yeah.
to relax yourself with. And even then, the second they walk out, you scream as though you're being raped because the bank sent you a letter saying we didn't get your check.
Yeah.
That is not, and that's not even something to audibly respond to. You just call and say, "Hey,
I sent my check." Right. Anyway, so the girls go streaming back in, and so the girls go streaming back in, and you know, they put the headphones on her from the Walkman to play Don Ho, right?
Yeah.
And then
Before they left.
Before they left, and she starts screaming her lines, saying, "Okay, I guess the tea break is in order. Thanks, gang."
Yeah.
Right. While listening to Don Ho, right? So I would like to talk a little about Don Ho.
Oh, by all means.
So Don Ho, most famous, because we keep saying Tiny Bubbles, for his hit Tiny Bubbles from the album Tiny Bubbles. He was a Hawaiian singer. Anyway, he had 10 children. He died fairly recently in 2007. He had 10 children with 3 different women or 4 different women. But the interesting thing is that so he had one girl named Hoku. Do you remember that pop star?
I do. I was working at a record store when it came out.
Yeah, so
Hoku Ho.
Her huge hit was that broke her out was called Another Dumb Blonde, which I'm sure everyone of our age could probably sing. It was the big hit for the 2000 not so good movie Snow Day. But more importantly, she also wrote Perfect Day, which is the song from Legally Blonde, which is like the best song from that movie. Anyway, the other thing that's important about Don Ho, aside from Hoku, his daughter, is the fact that Don Ho he sang the song for the 2005 movie Aloha Scooby-Doo, which I'm a little surprised that you do not know that because you love Scooby-Doo.
Okay, I've seen Aloha Scooby-Doo several times, and I am aware that there's a Don Ho character. I did not realize that it was the real Don Ho it is hard to know what's going on with those Scooby movies. They put out a lot of them, and you just try to consume them as soon as you can, and then they're in one ear out the other.
Okay.
But I did see it,
Okay.
and so that adds up. And it's nice that he kind of like got like a final, "Hey kids, I'm a guy."
Yeah.
Before he went out.
Mm-hmm.
Hey kids, I'm a guy. Anyway, I'm surprised that Mrs. Garrett was so upset by this, especially with that Hawaii poster in the room. You would think she would be pretty calm. But Blair says this whole bank mix-up is so typical, which gets a laugh because
I know.
she knows money. That's crazy. Anyway, Mrs. Garrett says she's going to go to the bank and give them a piece of her mind, and Blair offers to do it for her, which is a bananas suggestion, to the point where Mrs. Garrett reacts appropriately for once in this episode. So when Blair says, "I will go to the bank for you," how does Mrs. Garrett react?
What? To be perfectly frank, it felt like she improvised that. Like that was not in the script. Like it was probably going to be just like, Miss Blair being like, "Oh no, I insist," and Mrs. Garrett being like, "Well, that actually is a really nice offer for you to do something that is completely not feasible at all," But like the fact that like it was as though Mrs. Garrett got like a new page like right before they shot and was like, "No, this is crazy. I'm not saying any of this. I'm going with my gut. I'm going with, you want to do my bank work for me? What?"
Even Blair, although it was probably Lisa Whelchel and not Blair, was like she's got like.
So the funny thing is that so Mrs. Garrett is like standing there freaking out with her letter from the bank, being like, "They're going to foreclose on my car." That's not right, but whatever. Blair, so Tootie, Joe, and Natalie are sort of surrounding Mrs. Garrett. Blair has walked away from them to be like, no, I'll do the bank stuff. I'll do the bank stuff. Mrs. Garrett whips her head over, looks at Blair, and says, "What?" And like the sheer cacophony from that almost caused the other girls to like bounce back away from her because they were like shocked at like, Jesus, you don't need to be this crazy about it. Like,
Charlotte, calm your acting.
Yeah.
What is happening? But Blair basically persists. She's basically a bank herself. Money is her name. So Joe can add on, and greed is your game, to howls of laughter from the audience, which was surprising.
Yeah. So the way that Blair convinces Mrs. Garrett to let her take care of a private financial matter at her bank is to say, no. We Warders have a lot of experience with banking. Money is our name. And then Mrs. Garrett sort of like, "Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds good. Yeah, you do that. That sounds really good."
I'm just genuinely shocked that this was a plot point that the network let happen.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So basically, Mrs. Garrett, because of a bank,
and it could have been. I'm sorry, but it could have been solved so easily by being like, "Oh no, my check is here, and I have to rush it to the bank because if it's not in by today, then I won't get my certificate of ownership. I got to go do that. I'll do it for you. I just have to drop it off. That's easy. That sounds easy. That sounds something a 16-year-old could do." Anyway, go on. Do you like my front pony?
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, no, and again, but it strikes me as like, so yeah, Mrs. Garrett, like her check didn't actually get to the, she doesn't have the deed to her car or whatever. But then Blair insists on taking Mrs. Garrett's car keys and doing this bank situation.
Yeah, she literally pulls the letter out from Mrs. Garrett's clutches, and then the minute that Blair holds the letter, Mrs. Garrett's like, "Oh, well, I guess since you already have the paper."
Yeah, you already
gives
have
her the car keys.
And then she just takes the keys and like again, as I said, it's never been established that Blair knows how to drive.
Yeah, but I can buy that it happened. Because honestly, if we were talking about this, if we were to give every single girl a driving lesson episode, that would suck. So they did one. That's fine.
But in any case,
Like they'll be cruising around from here on out. They'll be driving.
Okay. So anyway, so that now that Blair is taking care of this bank problem, Mrs. Garrett can focus on the thing
the real issue.
The real issue at hand, which is planning this birthday party for her boss's wife.
Yes. She just needs to come up with a theme.
I know. And I thought, neither of these two things strike me as that stressful.
At all. But let's say that we're just to take all this at face value. What adult woman wants a theme birthday party?
I have that in my notes later about this. Exactly. Like, what adult woman who's Mr. Parker's age, right? So, like, in your 50s, insists on a themed birthday party like she's an 8-year-old girl.
Yes.
She's like, if I don't get my Paw Patrol, I'm gonna have a meltdown.
So you really need there to be a theme. It's under the sea, serve fish, you're done.
Oh, that's so clever. Mrs. Garrett, you're such one of a kind coming up with these party ideas.
It's comedy at its best.
Oh my God. Yeah, and so then
we'll get to that line later. But the girls tell her to forget about that for the time being. Take a walk, smell the flowers, that kind of bullshit. But she smelled the flowers yesterday. So then they give her a bunch of platitudes like think happy thoughts, have a nice day. Today's the first day of the rest of your life. And not even grateful that her slaves are worried for her, but also not truthful enough to tell them to just cool it.
No.
She asks them when they all became bumper stickers.
And then we're out.
Yeah. What a weird scene. My cat's trying to attack me.
So okay. So
then the Toots comes in, or we are out of that scene, and we're in the cafeteria.
Thank God we're in the cafeteria. I felt lost. I didn't know where we were for a long time.
Yeah, it was weird not being in there for 2 scenes in a row. But we'll get a couple scenes in a row in the cafeteria. So
yeah.
So the Toots walks into the cafeteria, talking clearly about how Mrs. Garrett's already looking better.
Yeah.
Like they clearly were told, just come in like you're mid-conversation. No, let's talk about anything. Well, we don't have a B plot in this episode, so I don't know. Mrs. Garrett sure is looking better after nothing happened. Anyway, Mr. Parker appears, hoping to get a few minutes with Red, but Nat cuts him off at the balls and asks him, "Is this about your wife's birthday?" It is.
Yeah.
And then asks if he thinks it's fair that he always Mrs. Garrett always arranges these parties, and he has no part in it.
Yeah.
He proudly tells him he takes full credit, even boasting that it's little lies like this that keep a marriage together. My goodness. Why would you put that on a TV show, and let alone have a principal tell that to a bunch of students?
Yeah. And then following this situation,
let alone the most gossipy students that he probably has, the one that faked an abortion and the one that started an illegal gambling ring. Everybody knows everything about these two because they keep their mouths open about everything. And then tell them, oh, and I lied to my wife about stuff.
Exactly. But then it's like, this just sets up like the rest of this scene between Mr. Parker and the Toots that's just full of shitty, stupid wife jokes.
Yes.
And it's like, this is for little girls. This isn't this sort of like, relationship you should be able to, you should see. I don't want to see this man telling little girls about how he lies to his wife.
I found it personally shocking. But Natut sits down and explains how much more meaningful this party would be if he just planned it himself. Tootie tries to explain it this way, that flowers are more meaningful when they're not sent by a secretary. But apparently, Mrs. Parker does not care how she gets the flowers. She just needs the flowers. Whatever you're going to do, make sure Mrs. Parker has the flowers.
You know what? There you go. That's the theme for the party. Well done, Mr. Parker. You came up with the theme all on your own. Flowers.
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 Or my wife's insatiable need for flowers. I think should really be the thing. It's like floral gluttony. That's it.
But then it gets into, it's like they sit down and they start like bossing him, and it's like he's making all these dumb, stupid wife jokes, like about how, women are so vain and foolish and they just need to be placated, and it's fine to lie to them and whatever. And then
Did he say? I mean, did he say any of that stuff except for the lying part?
well, yeah, no. So he says, Tootie says, "Wouldn't you feel better about planning your wife's party?" And he's like, "Not really." And Natalie's like, "Well, but think of all of these years of deceit." And Mr. Parker's like, "Well, I wouldn't call it deceit." And
Tootie's
then
like, what should we call it?
Tootie practically screams in his face.
She cannot talk quietly this episode.
Well, what shall we call it? And then this is all the lead up for the punchline, which is him going, you two are going to make perfect wives.
Yeah. mygoodness.com.
Yeah. So whoever this woman was that wrote this thing, who faked her own death in 2017, the fact is that I don't know what kind of ridiculous internalized misogyny she has, but this isn't a cool thing to put on a show for little girls about learning a lesson.
That's correct. I agree with you. Also, can we just talk for a second about that green velour jacket he's wearing with the elbow pads? That's hot.
I enjoyed it.
I would wear that.
So would my husband.
So Nat asks, hopefully, so you'll plan it yourself? And he agrees. But he's worried that he's going to mess it up. He's not slightly concerned why these girls have such a vested interest in this, though. Not at all.
Yeah.
Couldn't even think twice about that. He's more worried about coming up with a theme that's going to rival Mrs. Garrett's brilliant themes. Luckily, Natalie has a suggestion.
Yeah, and it's a space fantasy because apparently Natalie thinks that Mr. Parker is married to a 10-year-old boy.
Space fantasy. Everybody comes dressed as extraterrestrials.
And she goes, and hey, and she's like, and Natalie gets, she's got one of those Natalie brilliant ideas. She goes, everyone can come as an extraterrestrial. Hey, I know somewhere that sells webbed feet. What?
Yes. What is correct? I would like to know a lot more about that.
Yeah.
If like the rest of the episode was just like Natalie going to her webbed feet dealer to like try to, like, if I don't get these webbed feet, Mrs. Garrett's blood pressure is gonna go through the roof.
Yeah, I gotta get webbed feet. Listen, I got this huge list of RSVPs. Do you see how many RSVPs I have for the headmaster's wife's birthday party? Do you see how many web feet do you have? I'm gonna need all of them. How many do you have? Do you have in all sizes? Because we're doing a whole thing. It's a space fantasy for adults.
What are good
a woman in her 50s wants to have a space themed party where all of her guests come dressed as ET with webbed feet. It's not even clear if ET even has webbed feet. But again, it's not ET.
I had an ET wind-up toy, and it kind of looked like he had really long toes, so I would say not webbed. But like big feet. They're very big.
Okay. I don't like ET.
Considering how short he is.
Yeah, I don't like ET. So that's one of my least favorite films.
I truly dislike it as well.
See, this is why we're friends.
This is it.
mutual loathing of one of the most beloved children's movies of the 80s.
It's so fucked up and depressing and sad. I would never ever want to experience it again.
We need to table that. This podcast's gonna be 9 hours long if we talk about how much we hate ET. It's also very anti-science. I hate it.
So Mrs. Garrett comes down the stairs, sees Mr. Parker, and he drags it out for like a solid minute. It's that time of year again.
I know.
Year, another celebration.
I know. And this year I'm going to do it all by myself. I know.
This episode could have really used a B plot. Every bit is dragged out so much. Like, this is just the same bit with the cop.
I know.
What car? What paint? What girls? What surprise? Like, just come on. Anyway,
I know. And then Mrs. Garrett is, a little bit sort of like confused, is because, Mr. Parker doesn't do anything on his own, ever.
Yes.
At any point. He can't deliver bad news. He can't talk to parents. He can't, run the school. He has to consult with Mrs. Garrett on everything. He has to go through her to, Anyway, so she's sort of like kind of rightly like, what the hell? Was last year not so good with you didn't like my luau theme from last year?
And he drops this bomb. The little tiki torches on the cake were a stroke of creative genius.
Yeah. And then she said, and what about my gag dessert? Poi a la mode.
Comedy at its best.
And again, the laziness is just shocking, because there are desserts that are basically poi a la mode.
Really?
Yes. So poi is it's a Polynesian food, but mostly in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
It's taro root that has been boiled and pulverized into sort of creamy, a paste. It's very creamy. It's very starchy. It's sort of like a potato, but it's slightly sweet. It's like it's sort of like a pudding. Anyway, so there are at least I could find two in a 4 seconds of research, is that there is Samoan poi.
She didn't have Google, to be fair.
I'm sure she had a Encyclopedia Britannica.
Do you think all variations of poi are in Encyclopedia Britannica?
At least one. Anyway,
regular poi.
The fact that Mrs. Garrett is like being like big upping herself on all of her amazing themed birthday parties that she plans, you would think that she would do an insane amount of research. Anyway, yeah. So there's Samoan poi, which is poi, banana, and coconut cream. And then there's Tahitian poi, which is poi, bananas, papaya, or mango cooked with coconut cream, and mania, which is cassava root. So, yeah, it wasn't a gag dessert, Mrs. Garrett. You literally just ripped off an actual real cultural appropriation. Mrs. Garrett, guilty of an Alison Roman-esque erasure.
I also don't like the phrase gag dessert.
Oh no.
But she happily tells him she's got some ideas, and while he appreciates her past help, this is his job. It's his wife.
Yeah.
This was so weird. He was on the fence, like 30 seconds ago. You would think any kind of encouragement from Mrs. Garrett would push him over the edge, and he'd be like, "Okay, that's fine. I'll go with you."
Yeah.
But no. I'm amazed Mrs. Garrett's enthusiasm did not bring him back to her side. But Joe comes in just as Mr. Parker leaves.
Yeah.
Finds out that Mr. Parker is going to do it himself. Joe feels great for Mrs. Garrett, but Mrs. Garrett feels terrible. It's something else.
Well, that's the thing. Joe's like, what the? She's like, that's another fucking thing off your goddamn to-do list, that you were whining about your stress. So why is this a bad thing? And Mrs. Garrett's like, he dropped me like a hot potato. Something's wrong. And I'm going to find out the truth. And then runs away.
I wrote, this acting is insanely over the top. I don't even know if you went as crazy as she did.
I didn't because I have neighbors,
Yes. So Mrs. Garrett leaves, and then Blair enters looking shell-shocked.
Yeah.
Joe asks, what's up? Blair has good news and bad news. She'd like to say the good news first, because the bad news is so bad.
Yeah, so bad.
I thought that was funny. The good news is somehow Blair went into town and successfully fixed Mrs. Garrett's banking problem, even though that seems impossible, but okay. The bad news was the car was stolen.
I know.
I laugh, and so did Joe.
Joe bursts into laughter, but Blair is like, I'm fucked. You know, it's like serious. And then she's like, you know, but, and then Blair, you know, congratulations on making this about yourself. She's like, I'm sick about it. I'm so sick about it. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. And Joe's like, who cares what it's doing to you? What's it gonna do to Mrs. Garrett? And then, you know, then Azad holds on them for 5 seconds
Well, Blair
while
makes
they
a
look
face where it's
concerned.
like, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
I know. And then what happens? We come back.
The audience goes nuts.
Yeah.
Also, it's crazy that Joe would think that Blair is joking, because that would be so out of character for Blair to commit to a bit to that level.
Yeah.
Like, she would never. But
no, she's
whatever.
incapable.
I know. I liked it much better when I thought that Joe was just laughing at the jam that Blair got herself into.
Yeah.
But
you know,
what are
so
you going to do?
So we come back, right? We come back from commercial. Still in the cafeteria. Back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Back to back. And Joe's just like, whoa, you're serious. Oh, fuck. Like, damn, you know? And then she's like, you know, she offers up actually like a very reasonable explanation, which is, you know, maybe it was Toad. You know?
She's trying to rationalize this.
And Blair's like, no. And she's like, no, that can't be it.
I parked it perfectly legally.
Yeah, and just like Joe asks if she's a complete moron and forgot to lock the car. And she's like, no, of course I locked it. But it could have been that other thing. And I thought, you know, maybe we could leave the window open.
Convertible. It was a convertible.
Convertible? No. What? And then Joe's like, what other thing? And Blair admits to doing something so irredeemably stupid that I thought maybe, you know, maybe Blair should be dating that guy who marches to a beat of a different drummer.
Yeah, so Blair
because
left
she says, I left the keys in the lock.
Mm-hmm. It seems like it's possible that was what happened, why the car was stolen. Luckily, though, we've got the thieves are unusual thieves, but we'll get into that later. So it's going to be fun.
So this is why this is so bizarre, is that it's like, you know, it's as though halfway through when they started shooting the show, they got a serious network note, and they were like, you need to raise the stakes. This isn't important enough. And then, you know, the writers and everyone was like, but wait, we already shot so much of it. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with the stress that Mrs. Garrett was facing around planning the party and about how she got that, you know, speeding ticket, you know, and they were like, yeah, we don't care about the speeding ticket. That's not that big a deal. And it's like, it would be like $50 and she can afford $50. And they were like, and it was like, well, you know what we should do? Actually, let's make it so that Blair makes it so that Mrs. Garrett has her car stolen. Like, it's like, it's like, let's make it so that an earthquake demolishes Eastland and traps Mrs. Garrett under a steel pylon. It's like, they went so big.
Season 7.
What?
Yes, they did go big. Mrs. Garrett enters. She's delighted to see Blair. Blair tells her the certificate of ownership is in the mail, and Mrs. Garrett seems pleased. Yeah. Before she can ask too many questions, Joe changes the subject back to Mr. Parker. Apparently, he went into a closed-door meeting with a man that looks exactly like that caterer from Poughkeepsie, because apparently Mrs. Garrett has an encyclopedic knowledge of what all the caterers in all the neighboring towns look like.
Exactly. I wrote down as though this random caterer, who also, to be perfectly frank, for not being a party planner, Mr. Parker moves pretty damn quick, because he barely had enough time to get to his office.
I don't know how that guy got here from Poughkeepsie.
Did he call him on the way? You know, like, how did he get here so quickly? Poughkeepsie is like at least an hour north of Peekskill. It's far away. And it's like, and Mrs. Garrett's already like, I didn't know that caterer from Poughkeepsie. He's cheating on me with that caterer from Poughkeepsie. As though, this fucking caterer from Poughkeepsie is like Wolfgang Puck.
It made no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, time and space don't add up.
No.
I'm not even sure. Was it the caterer from Poughkeepsie? Because it was so fast. And also, he said he was going to do it on his own. That was the whole point of this, was that he only was so he could be the one to do it. But it hurts my head to even try to think about the logic that Sandra K. Siegel has brought forth. Yeah, so Mrs. Garrett laughs until she cries. It's very intense. And then Mrs. Garrett asks Blair to put her keys in her bedroom because she needs to take the car to town later.
Yeah.
Since her electric typewriter has stopped working, and apparently she has no pockets and there are no surfaces anywhere on this floor to put down keys.
And also it's like, oh, so as I said, the level of inconveniences that were stressing out Mrs. Garrett, right? Rule of 3 are: don't have the deed to my car, have to plan a party in only a few days, and oh, my typewriter is broken, right? Extremely low stakes. Like so low that it probably, to be honest, lowered my blood pressure from watching this, right? But then, as I said, someone was like, shit, it seems like Mrs. Garrett shouldn't be this stressed out about nothing. So let's give her something like big, which is a car getting stolen because Blair's a moron.
Why not?
Anyway, then they need to commit to this lie. So Joe's like, whoa. She's like, you don't need to go to town. You don't need to go to town. I can repair this typewriter.
If it's a machine, I can fix it. Like that old-timey dildo you have. Who got that to work for you? Just needed a little spit.
Yeah, I got that Sibian working for you. You can go on your Sibian rides like you love. Anyway.
Mrs. Garrett's very touched.
Yeah, she
has... So touched. Too touched.
So she exits through the kitchen and she turns around and she does one of her, weird, effusive, breathe through her teeth, like verbal orgasm, like where she just delivers lines, like where she's like, Joe, if you really think you could, that would be wonderful. Like she's a ghost. And it's like over a typewriter? What's happening?
She's got to.
She's got all that correspondence.
So anyway, Mrs. Garrett leaves, and Blair thanks Joe for the reprieve, and Joe just goes, "How do you fix an electric typewriter?"
Yeah,
I thought that was cute. That was a lol.
Yeah.
We learned that Blair reported this to the police. She prays to God or whoever's upstairs that the cops find it. Joe has a lot of faith in the Peekskill PD. She knows they're going to find it. Not only are they going to find it, they're going to find the engine in Florida, and they're going to find the transmission in Jersey. This is a nationwide lookout for Mrs. Garrett's vehicle.
Yeah, a used Volkswagen. But I love the fact that it's like
Volkswagen.
We'll get to that. But anyway, so Joe has to like demonstrate the fact that she's got street smarts and she knows about car chops. Chopping cars up for pots. She's like, yeah. The Peekskill PD, they're gonna find the transmission in Miami and the wheels in Jersey City. It's
okay.
like,
I feel like your Joe. This was the moment when your Joe transcended to something even better than Joe, and it's like Dana Carvey's Bush didn't really sound like Bush. It just was funnier than Bush. That's where your Joe has gone, and I feel like she's about to say "Duh, Bears."
Yeah. Anyway, but it's like again, it's like Joe. It's like she's also again like she's not cheering up her friend. like as I've said many times on the show, it's like as soon as someone is vulnerable or there's blood in the water, they immediately go. It's like Mrs. Garrett's like, oh, I have a slightly elevated, blood pressure. Tootie's like, yeah, well, she's dead already. She's sand. She's a pile of sand, And it's like Joe's, Blair's in trouble. And she's like, well, I hope the cops I pray they can find it really quickly. She's like, yeah, they're going to find it. They're going to find it spread across the Americas. And it's like, why are you doing this? That's not helping me.
I mean, but to be fair, Joe is doing nothing but helping people in this episode. Like, she's going to fix a typewriter for no reason just to get Blair out of a jam. Your car's getting painted fuchsia. You know how Blair's impulsive and rich. Like, she's going down this track trying to save her friend Blair so hard. So at least, let her have fun and shit on her friend every now and then. You got to take the good with the bad. That's all. It's the song. So Natoots comes in very pleased with themselves.
Oh yeah, super proud. So proud.
Once again, they're pleased with themselves.
Yeah, so pleased with themselves, like patting themselves on the back for having convinced Mr. Parker to hire Wolfgang Puck from Poughkeepsie, to not have to do the party, and then Joe's just like, well, now she's upset, you fucking idiots. Jesus.
You sent her into hypertension. She's probably dead by now.
Exactly.
Anyway, Joe tells Blair to say what she did. Joe was like, Blair, you want to tell them how you helped Mrs. Garrett? And we just fade out. And thank goodness, because I don't think I can bear this shit. And they just keep saying the same shit over and over and over and over again.
I know. And like, as soon as Joe's just sort of like, you know what? You guys fucked up, because she's pissed off about that too. There's no car. The typewriter's broken. Excuse me. And then Natalie's just like, again, like usual, congratulations for making this about you. Natalie's like, oh God, keeping Mrs. Garrett stress-free is really making me stressed out. And it's like, you're the one, you started this.
She did. She 100%
did. Silent killer bullshit.
So now we're in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett comes down looking for Blair. She can't find her car keys anywhere. Joe tries to tell her, the electric typewriter will be fine. You don't need to use your car keys. It's fine. Yeah. But now
Natalie's like, what do you need the keys for? And Mrs. Garrett says, well, they come in handy when you want to get your motor started.
Yep.
Somehow, they managed to squeeze in a gross sex joke under the wire.
And also more mystery, because Mrs. Garrett does not say what she needs to go to the town for this third time. Yeah. They ran out of things. That coming up with the broken electric typewriter nearly killed poor Sandra Siegel. We can't have another thing that she needs. I need to go into the town right now.
See,
I'm not going to tell you why. It doesn't matter. And when I find out that my keys are unavailable, I stop caring about the thing I had to do.
Yeah, but that's the other thing that's funny is that to be perfectly frank, what were the symptoms of having high blood pressure that you read to me? Is it memory loss, one of them? Because I think it is. What?
Confusion.
Because Mrs. Garrett was like, I need to go into town to do this car thing. Okay, so I'm going to do the car thing. And then I'm going to come back, and then I need to do the party. I need to go back into the city. Now I need to go get my typewriter. And it's like she's going back and forth 50 times, into town, back home, back to town, back. Mrs. Garrett needs to just have a fucking to-do list.
Yes. Also, she has a job. She's supposed to be at that school watching those girls.
No, I know.
She have to go to the doctor today. How many times is she going to go into town?
Great point. The doctor visit. Yeah. So then Joe just says, like, your keys on in your room. And Mrs. Garrett has the weirdest, like, is response. She flirting with Joe? She goes, I know. That is why I am looking for them.
She was being like extra cutesy, and it's really strange.
So that's, and the other funny thing is that I was like, so as soon as this episode started, I was like, okay, so this is, I was like, so the blood pressure thing is just, I was like, so this is basically going to be revolving around that, like trying to keep Mrs. Garrett from blowing her stack, right? And the irony, the big irony was going to be
is that you blew your stack.
that Mrs. Garrett the girls are constantly stressing Mrs. Garrett out, right? They're contributing to her having a worse day. They are not helping. They are hindering.
That is
and
correct.
They're contributing to her terrible blood pressure, right? And so I was like, oh, I see how this is going to go. And I was like, oh no, you know what they're going to do? They're going to make Mrs. Garrett scream the whole time. Because she's going to have to show how stressed out she is about everything. And yes, I was not wrong.
She does all kinds of things. She was being cutesy just now.
Yeah.
Joe goes on to explain that the car isn't here either. And then Mrs. Garrett starts to freak out when Natalie jumps in. She solves it.
What do you mean, not here? Where is it?
It's getting painted, Natalie says. Why painted? Why not washed?
Right?
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, of course it would make a lot more sense. It would live in the universe that we currently recognize as our reality. Yeah. You know? Anyway, so then I have to say though that so Natalie's super proud of this incredibly,
shitty lie.
Incredibly perfect lie that has no holes in it at all and wouldn't be able to be, unconvincingly, proven. Anyway, Blair's having it painted. She's so proud of this. And then Mrs. Garrett says something which actually was like the one clear crystalline moment of honesty in this episode, which is she's like, that's absurd. That's crazy.
That's the craziest thing she's ever heard.
Yeah.
But apparently it looked faded. And as Joe explains, she's very impulsive and very rich. And it would break her heart if the surprise was ruined, which that clicks with Mrs. Garrett. She's like, oh, we're doing like a secret bit. Okay.
Oh, I love a secret.
I'm on board with whatever. My car's missing. That's fine. We're doing secret game. So she's so excited. She wonders what color it's being painted. Joe suggests fuchsia for some reason, while everybody else is like, I don't know. Joe's like, fuchsia. Which I enjoyed that. Yeah, the general consensus is they have no friggin' clue. Mrs. Garrett hopes that Blair remembers how much she loves blue.
Yeah, she loves blue.
She loves songs about blue, and she loves the color blue. So in the cafeteria now, Mrs. Garrett bumps into, wouldn't you know it, Blair.
Who's like, oh, fuck.
Yes, and she, no reason to discuss whatever her thing is that she needed in town. If her car's becoming blue, then that's all that matters. So Blair's feeling guilty, and she wants to confess.
No, Mrs. Garrett is like very creepy. She goes, hi, Blair.
And Mrs. Garrett is now insane for the rest of the episode, but particularly this scene.
Yes.
So Blair says, I don't have the keys to the car. And Mrs. Garrett giggles and then goes, oh.
Yeah. She goes, I don't have the keys or the car.
Blair finally confesses, and Mrs. Garrett doesn't believe her, but pretends to believe her. Yeah. It's a high wire act. She says, don't worry about it, and then just snaps her fingers.
Yeah.
No sweat.
No sweat. No sweat. No, these things happen.
It's like she's so high.
So high.
Like,
and then and Blair's just sort of like, something's wrong. I'm now deeply worried about her. Like, I do think she might have had a stroke. Like, yeah. Blair's looking at her like, oh,
yeah,
God.
She squints at her. Like, how are you not upset?
Yeah.
And then what does Mrs. Garrett say?
She goes, hey. There's more important things than a used Volkswagen. I was like, oh, how does she say it? I went back and rewatched it, and she goes, and I wrote down in my notes, all low and growly.
And it's and it's
Like, I pitched
Volkswagen.
my voice down so low. Hey. There's more important things in life than a used Volkswagen.
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 Yes, there you go. I actually confirmed with some car experts. That's how they say it in Germany.
Yeah, that is how you say it in Germany. But are we in Germany?
No. And yeah, and also we get somebody else saying Volkswagen, and they say it normal.
Yeah.
So we
Mrs.
know
Mrs.
Mrs.
Garrett
Garrett's just hi.
is.
Anyway, no time to think about the pronunciation because Mrs. Garrett has just burst into singing Blue Skies.
And then leaves. And Blair's
Yes.
like, oh shit.
What are the 11 signs of hypertension now? Was the 11th one singing?
Yeah.
And now it's later on in the evening, and Mrs. Garrett's still in the fucking cafeteria. She's putting on tablecloths on the table.
While still singing.
Still singing. New Blue song this time. It's just, Am I Blue? Am I Blue? Like over and over again.
Oh, it's not blue ba doo dee da doo da doo da doo dee da doo da.
My old boss told me this is when the song was new. He was like, "You like that new gay song about being blue?" And I was like, "Gay song?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm blue. I'm in need of a guy. I'm in need of a guy. I'm in need of a guy." Now this is like 22 years ago or something, and that's how I've heard the song ever since.
Yeah.
That blue abu babu die. That's I'm in need of a guy.
By I believe Eiffel 95. No.
Eiffel 65.
65. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was close.
You were very close. Off by 30. So then the police officer enters the cafeteria. It's Officer Franklin. And he would like to know if Mrs. Garrett is the one whose car has been stolen. Because when you enter a girls' school cafeteria at night, usually the first person you see is the person you need. So don't even ask, are you Edna Garrett? Or can you help me find Edna Garrett? No. Are you the person whose car was stolen?
Yeah.
She's like, no.
And then this goes on. This garbage Abbott and Costello nonsense shit dialogue. My
Crap it and Costello.
Yeah. No, that's not me. Are you Edna Garrett? Yes, I am. Well, your car was stolen. No, it wasn't. It's just like,
yeah, it's not until he gives her the license plate number when she's like, oh, it was stolen.
Yeah, and it's like 868 DUD, and I was like, yeah, this is a dud. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Officer Franklin for a second. It's very rare that we get an Act 3 new cast member to come in, so it's exciting.
To do nothing, to deliver the keys.
Yes. So he's played by Johnny Hamer, who has a history of delivering keys in sitcoms. He was born in 1920. He's got a ton of credits. He might be best known for being the comic in Annie Hall, but he got his start on the Buddy Hackett. Wow.
Oh,
I had it.
You're glitching. Should I unplug you and plug you back in?
No, I'll be good. Buddy Hackett sitcom called Stanley from 1956. It also seems he was a stand-up comedian because in 59 he was on the Ed Sullivan Show doing comedy. After that, he did a Dick Van Dyke, Gunsmoke, My Three Sons, Get Smart, Doris Day Show, Mod Squad, Adam 12. He was Krenna in And Justice for All. He did 2 Mork and Mindy's where he played Danny St. Tommy, which is a great name. He did a ton of Scooby-Doo voices. I'm deeply familiar with his work. He was on 20 episodes of MASH, recurring as Sergeant Zelmo Zale. He was in the 1982 Steve Guttenberg sitcom No Soap Radio. Do you know that expression, no soap radio?
I don't.
So it's so weird. I just learned this the other day. It's basically when you make a joke at somebody else's expense, like like let's say me and you were talking about Splash 3, Return to the Sea, a movie that didn't exist. And basically, we're pretending like it existed so that we could trick Peter and Greg into thinking that it's a real movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get them to say, "Oh, I have seen that movie."
Okay.
And then you go, "Ha ha, no, you haven't. We tricked you." That is apparently called no soap radio.
Huh.
Yes, and it was brought up to me like 3 days ago, and then I learned that this guy was in a Steve Guttenberg 1982 sitcom called No Soap Radio, which is nihilistic and crazy, and has fake commercials. It's like about a guy who works at like a apartment complex, like it's like sort of like a bellhop type thing, um, and but they have like fake commercials for like a breakfast cereal where when you open it up, an arm comes out and pulls you into the box of cereal, and it's done with like practical effects. It was very weird. It was very 1982. The pilot's on YouTube, and I plan on watching it, but I had to get through this episode.
Yeah.
And I haven't even gotten through this guy's credits.
The fact that it had fake commercials, that reminds me a lot of WandaVision.
Ah, yes, WandaVision. Also, the young ones would do that as well.
We watched WandaVision, which I always want to call Long Division.
You know what I want to call it? Juan Division, like JUAN, and then the word division.
Huh.
Because apparently the night that the show went online or went live, closed captioning
called it Juan
Division, and people went nuts. And so I think I can't stop thinking about that.
That's hilarious.
So he was also in Fame, Jeffersons, Cagney and Lacey, Three's Company, Punky Brewster, Simon and Simon. And in 1989, he was in Life Goes On, which sadly it did not for Mr. Hamer.
Oh.
This was his last gig before he died that year. He also was in a posthumous TV movie called Full Exposure, The Sex Tape Scandal, which starred Lisa Hartman, Vanessa Williams, and James Avery, Philip Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh. Wait, what kind of movie was this?
It was a TV movie about a bunch of, apparently it was like a prostitute and a guy got in, like a politician, in some kind of scandal. And then they uncovered that it was like a whole ring of sex tapes that they were like releasing one by one to blackmail all these prominent figures.
Was this made pre or post Vanessa Williams nude scandal?
I don't remember when that happened. I feel like that happened in like 91 or 92. But
yeah.
If it happened earlier, this is 89. So feel free to Google, lovelies, and you'll get the answer to that question. He also did voice work for cartoons like DuckTales, Scooby-Doo, Alvin and the Chipmunks, among others. Did you say woo?
Yeah, because you said DuckTales. Woo!
Oh, okay. He's a man of many talents, and he is confirming that Mrs. Garrett is, in fact, the person that he's looking for. She has a 1975 yellow Volkswagen convertible. He says it normally. She says nothing normally. She responds, possibly blue.
And he's like, no, yellow.
Yeah, and also,
yellow.
Be concerned that your car was stolen. Anyway, she automatically assumes it must have been stolen from the paint shop. And he's like, what paint shop? And she explains it was part of the big surprise. And he's like, what big surprise? And he's like, the one that the girls were stealing from. What
girls?
And when she says my girls, wouldn't you think that he would just infer that those are her children?
Yes,
so
you would.
No need to ask what girls. No. Even if it's not accurate, it doesn't seem worth yelling at the lady who just found out her car was stolen and is also not blue.
Yeah.
Anyway, he explains that Blair reported the car stolen, and she goes, Blair told me it was stolen, and I didn't believe her.
And then at this point, this guy should have been like, I don't know if you should be working at a school for children anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to give you this car. You seem really odd. Can
you come with me? Can you follow the pen? Can you follow the pen? Mrs. Garrett's like, what? What pen?
What year is today? What color is your car?
Yellow, brown. I don't know. It's a Volkswagen. Yeah.
So, fortunately, the cops did believe Blair, and it was found still yellow, but only a few blocks away. And the radio's missing. And she goes, and I fell for the paint story. He should be like, do you want me to leave so you can do whatever it is that you're doing on your own? Because you are not having a conversation with me. Everything you say is insane.
He's like, okay. Just sign right here. Just sign.
He's
just sign
not
here.
willing to engage. Anyway,
sign
here's the
here.
keys.
Sign here.
Sign. I want to go.
Sign here. Here's the keys. It's parked outside. Also, yeah, and then cute little callback. He flirts with her, and he's like, I think it's cuter in yellow or whatever.
Also, what kind of car thieves steal a car with the keys in it? The keys are in it. This is not a time with LoJack where we can track where this car is. The keys are in the car. You have stolen the car. And what do? You move it 3 blocks and take the radio. And you're like, that's it. That's all I need. Maybe the radio.
Maybe they just wanted the radio.
Then why did they take the car at all? Why not just go into the car with the keys open and be like, I'm just going to grab this radio and go?
Maybe because it was parked in front of a bank. So
you could pretend like it's your car. You sit in it, take the radio out, put it in your pocket, and you leave.
Okay. You know what, Dominic? Why don't you take this up with all of the radio robbers that you know and ask whether this is feasible?
Radio robbers? Shout out to my radio robbers. Hit me up in the chat. All right. So has this ever happened in the history of crime where somebody stole a car with the keys in it, moved it 3 blocks and just took the radio and left the keys in the car? No. It was not stolen again?
As I said, this episode is like, it's so, like, it denies what reality looks like. It puts a skin of, it's a simulation of what the world could be like.
It's the Marjorie Taylor Greene of Facts of Life episodes.
Yes.
It's setting a dangerous precedent.
Indeed. This is the reason why she had to fake her own death.
It's all coming together. So everybody, I hope her family isn't like, oh, look, somebody did a podcast about Mima's episode of Facts of Life. Let's watch this. They're making an awful lot of jokes about her death.
She was so proud of her one episode of the Facts of Life.
She said it was the best thing she ever did.
It was the best thing she ever did, and she only wanted to do one because she wanted to go out on a high note.
She did a perfect episode.
She knew that she couldn't do better. And to be honest, it's sort of like, she did it for her kids. It wasn't her thing. She did it because she knew that it would please them, sort of like Raul Julia doing the final role in Mortal Kombat. It was his final role that he was in that movie before he died because his kids were like, that'd be awesome if you were in that, Dad. And that's what this is. This was just for her children.
Okay. Well, sorry, guys. Anyway, everybody but Joe enters and Mrs. Garrett yells at them to stay put. The officer leaves, digging the knife in, saying that you thought the car looked cute and yellow. She doesn't want it to look cute. She wants it to look sexy. Anyway, he leaves, and Nat tries to get ahead of the narrative, wants to make sure, before she humiliates herself any further, that Mrs. Garrett is aware the car is not actually being painted, which I thought was ballsy.
But it was such a sort of annoying Natalie thing, like, okay, so before we make unnecessary fools of ourselves, is it safe?
I just feel like the way that you hate Natalie and her quirks, which I understand and respect, but it makes me think that you must not care for me because I feel like I have a lot of Natalie's quirks.
No, not at all. It's the thing is that it's like, the thing about Natalie is that she's basically like, she was trying to make a joke here. She couldn't just say, okay, so and it would have been funnier if she just said, so about the car.
I don't think so. I actually thought this was a funny delivery, and I thought it was a funny line. Okay. I enjoyed it. But anyway, she then turns to Blair and why didn't you tell the truth?
Who's literally trying to sneak away, like she and like kind of like one of those in almost like an exaggerated like something that you would put on like on a stage play of like a cat burglar. Like, oop, I am creeping. Oop, don't see me. I'm not here. La 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 da da da.
She's trying to creep towards the secret door in the lounge.
Yeah, like I'm just a potted plant. Da da da.
But anyway, so she's like, why didn't you tell me the truth? And Blair's like, I did. You just didn't believe me. And then she's like, how could I? I believed them. And then Blair should be like, then yell at them.
Exactly. And then to be perfectly honest, Blair's like, okay, listen, I'll get you a new fucking car. I'll buy you a new one. And Mrs. Garrett's like, no, not about that. I want a new car.
Honesty and I want maturity. And then that's like, be smart, take the car.
Yeah. As I said,
she should keep her mouth shut right now.
Nobody acts like, normal people in this episode. If Blair was like, listen, here's the thing, is that first thing Blair would have done, it's been like, shit, Mrs. Garrett's car was stolen. I don't know what to do. Oh, I'll just buy her a new one. That would be her immediate thought.
Yes, I wrote, it's surprising that it took this long to be brought up that Blair could buy a new car.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett demands answers for why they didn't tell her the truth. And it's like, duh. Did you not watch this episode? But for some reason, they won't give up their reason.
No, she's like, why didn't you tell me the truth? And she's like, why didn't you tell me the truth? And Natalie's just like, she's like, we had our reasons. And then Mrs. Garrett's like, there are no reasons for lying. And it's like, you know what, Mrs. Garrett? There are plenty of reasons for lying. So suck a dick. That's not what's going on here.
It's true. You were lying to Blair when you thought she was painting the car. There's a reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tootie freaks out because Mrs. Garrett's yelling and who knows what her blood pressure is going to be because of it. And suddenly Mrs. Garrett's like, oh, that's what this is about. Yes.
Well, no. So Tootie says
that.
She screams. So she screams, and then she goes, and Tootie goes, Mrs. Garrett, don't yell. And then Mrs. Garrett yells, saying, don't tell me not to yell. And I was like, at this point, I was just like, you know what? She can yell. They lost her car, and there's no radio.
But Mrs. Garrett says she's sorry she ever told them about her medical issues.
Yeah.
And I agree.
And that's the thing, is that it's like, at this point, they're like, they admit it has to do with her high blood pressure. And she's like, I never should have told you any of this shit. And it's like, no shit, Mrs. Garrett. Pack up your little, your fucking radioless Volkswagen and get the hell out of here. Leave these idiots behind.
Yeah, so Mrs. Garrett feels a little bit better when Blair says they just didn't want to unnecessarily stress her out. And then Natalie proudly announces that's why they got Mr. Parker to handle his wife's birthday party himself.
And then
But it's like, you already know that Mrs. Garrett is upset about this. Why are you delivering this like you're super proud? Like you just took a big dump in the bowl for the first time. Why are you acting this way? You know this is a bad thing. At least be a human and be like, oh, and by the way, just so you know, we screwed up. And it's not your fault that Mr. Parker is not using you. We thought it would be good to get it off your plate. Yeah,
no. Natalie decided to go with to say it in a way that would possibly kill Mrs. Garrett.
Yes.
She's like, oh, also, so yeah, that thing that you kind of were a little sad about not being asked to do, that like you were like kind of whining about, we got you off, we made it so that you don't have to do that either. And Mrs. Garrett, like she does this like creep turn, like over her shoulder at Natalie, like, what?
She's really pissed off. She spent all this time going crazy thinking that she fucked up her relationship with Mr. Parker. It's been like 5 hours.
I know.
So Mrs. Garrett admits that handing off her problems may have felt like a good idea, but Nat interrupts her. What do you mean, but? You had a ton of stress. Mrs. Garrett really should have said, yeah, and now I have a shit ton more because of you assholes.
Yes.
But instead, she says, no matter what you do, you can't eliminate stress. You just have to learn to deal with it. But that's not the moral of the episode. The moral of the episode is if you have something wrong with you, don't tell young kids.
Yeah. Keep your secrets.
Yes. And then Joe comes in.
Of course. With the kicker.
Even though you were really worried that we weren't going to be able to finish all of these things, you thought we were going to get another 22 minutes of typewriter fixing. Joe has fixed it off screen, thankfully, and
Yes.
Mrs. Garrett is so pleased. At least one of my girls isn't a complete shitball. So Joe plugs in the computer so that Mrs. Garrett can finally do all that super important typing that she's got planned.
So this is hilarious. So of course, like here's the thing: is that so Mrs. Garrett before when she was like, I just on top of all of this stress in my life, my electric typewriter's on the fritz, And then Joe's like, well, I could fix it. I could fix anything. It's like if it has a machine, I can fix it.
If it has a pussy, I can make it come. If it has a machine, I can fix it.
I was literally gonna do the De Niro thing in Meet the Parents. Like, I've got nipples. Can you milk me? Like, I'm a machine. Can you fix me? Anyway,
I dated somebody that said that to me.
And so Joe comes in with this giant, Smith Corona, Hewlett Packard, whatever, big blue typewriter, electric typewriter.
Brother Pete's Etch.
Yes. And brings it in, places it in front of Mrs. Garrett and the girls, right? They're like, Mrs. G, I fixed you. I don't know what that is. Mrs. G, I fixed your typewriter.
Mrs. G!
I don't know. Anyway.
Hang on, my Joe is not tuned right.
Yeah. So she comes in with this huge typewriter that has an enormous extension cord on the top. This huge brown extension cord from like your creepy uncle's garage. Like it was and it was huge. It was really long. And like she comes in and it's like this big, moment of like triumph. And
now you can type downstage, but we can plug it in upstage.
And she goes and she disappears all the way upstage to plug it in like 50 feet away. Like she's like, the only outlet available is the one in the gym.
In all of Peekskill.
Yeah. She's like, she goes all the way like 50 feet and then another 200.
That's why they spend so much time in the cafeteria. It's the only plug.
And then comes in, and then Mrs. Garrett's like, oh, I love typing. And then types. And then the lights go out.
But first, she types 3 letters and everybody cheers like it's a huge deal. Then the lights go out and everybody groans and Mrs. Garrett mutters, oh, my girls are shitballs.
Yep.
The end.
The end.
Yeah, I stand by it. That one went down easy. It was nonsense, but I guess I like being in the presence of a sitcom I know is smarter than I'm smarter than.
Okay, got that one out correctly. Also, look, on this one, finished a notebook.
That's exciting. How many notebooks are just for season 4?
Oh, God. At least 3 right now.
All right. Well, I think you got at least one more notebook. You like 4 notebooks a season. That's not bad.
Yeah, not bad at
all. All right. Well, that is all I have for you. You have anything else, Britt?
No, but thank God this wasn't a 2-parter.
Yes, that would have been rough for all of us. I promise you, I would have warned you in advance if this was a 2-parter.
But the funniest thing about this is that it was such a mess. You know what I mean? The reason why I thought that it was going to be a 2-parter because it was like 18 minutes in and the car still hadn't shown up, and I was sort of like, well, how are they going to resolve this?
Yeah.
How are they going to track down the car? And then it just, there it is. That's it. That's how it gets resolved.
Yes.
And of course, again, if we talk about it a lot, we don't see the car ever. We certainly do not see Mr. Parker's wife's party.
Of course not. We'll never see that. I don't think we ever will meet Mrs. Parker. I don't think that's happening. But you might want to fire up your husband because we've got another Cousin Jerry episode next week. I know he's been unavailable because of work. So we won't have our normal Cousin Jerry correspondent. But if you would like to send any messages along about this episode, he is welcome to watch it.
I will ask him, and I will read them during our and I'll let them be a surprise for me, as they will be for you, so that we're both surprised on the air.
Excellent. This will be the second episode that Brenda is in.
Oh, Brenda,
Yeah.
Natalie's terrible former friend who likes rocks.
And we also are going to get an appearance from Deborah Harmon.
Oh.
She was the mom in Growing Pains.
Oh, yes.
If that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. She was the mom in Just the 10 of Us.
Yeah, I was like, that's not right. It was Allie, not Allie Sheedy, Allie McGraw. No,
What, in Growing Pains?
in Growing Pains, who plays the mom? Allie.
It's not an Allie. Jennifer.
No.
Joanna. It's Joanna.
Joanna.
Joanna what? I'm Googling it.
This is
Joanna
like
Kearns.
Joanna Kearns. This is like what's
But,
this is like Dumb and Dumber. It's like, what is the name? The name is it Swanson, Simpson, Stinson? Well, maybe it's on the on the suitcase. Oh yeah, of course, Samsonite. It's like us.
Here's the thing. I think, and I could be wrong, I believe that Joanna Kearns is related to her.
Okay.
Deborah Harmon. I think they're sisters.
Okay.
I'll get to the bottom of this next time. You guys, yeah, if you guys are still listening to us, sorry. We're working some stuff out. Anyway, next episode is a real bummer. You might like it.
Great.
And with that, I have no more.
I don't have any more. Although, did I get another death in there? No.
Yeah, we did. Remember, I made one.
Okay.
It was about the life goes on, but it didn't for Johnny Heyman.
Nice. Okay, good.
Bad people. We're bad people here.
I'm glad we got it in. Glad we got it in.
Well, until next time, we love you. We're sorry to the families of the deceased, and we'll be back with a really depressing one next week.
Sweet.
Bye.
Bye.